Now follow me along as I build this PC. So when I was building this PC, a couple things I ran into. Number one, I thought that I was bigger than the program and didn't have to read any manuals, didn't have to do any Google searches because I quote unquote know everything. Wrong, wrong, wrong. You're gonna see here in a couple moments when the RAM, I was almost gonna install it the wrong way, but I recommend reading the manual. Not only that, I was able to find some screws that I was missing when I was trying to install this M.2 drive here. I didn't know where the screws was, and I was extremely pissed because I was like looking for it. As you can see, I found it. I've started reading the manual. As you can see, my daughter's there with her purple hair. This was around a little bit after the actual Halloween season. She was dressed up as a purple minion. She was there trying to help me, but as kids are, she just really just wanted to be with her dad, which I don't mind. It was pretty cool. So I'm here putting everything together. This part stumped me the most, the CPU install of the actual cooler. Reason being is because I was looking at the actual manual and I thought that I bought the wrong part. Well, as you can see here, I finally figured out it was actually the other orientation. Instead of having to be across, it was up and down from the actual standoffs. You can't see much here. I'm going to get better at it. But all in all, I built this PC, and if I pulled my spreadsheet, it was around $600 I was able to build this PC for, and it performs great. I mean, as you can see here, well, you're not going to see here. I don't even know why I said that, but when I was able to run tests on it, when I was able to play games, I played Arc Raiders over 100 frames. Apex was a very easy game to run because it's a competitive FPS. I was getting 144 frames. I honestly prefer this PC a bit better than my actual setup that I had, but I'm not changing my setup currently because I built it in a while ago. Anyways, that's for other news. As you can see here, I am trying to plug everything up right now. The thing with this Prime motherboard that I noticed, and you'll see it later, maybe you will, maybe you won't. There's only one RGB 5-volt header. So I had to plug in the actual RGB header of the actual CPU fan to the controller on the back of this case, which, by the way, this case, you're not going to be able to see it here. Phenomenal case. It's by DIY PC. Very nice case. Very easy to build on. The instructions weren't great. I will say that. So maybe I'm gonna take that back that I said it was easy to build on because there are some things that I kind of had to figure out for myself on how things work. I tried to get a better angle here. I couldn't really do it, but as you can see here, I'm just kind of making sure everything, prepping the case essentially, making sure everything is ready for the motherboard because I think the hardest part of building a PC, not even the hardest part because it really isn't that hard, or the most confusing is for me was kind of with a case, just kind of getting the motherboard correctly in there. Because the cool thing about PC building is you can do most of your components, and when I say most, I mean like 80% of it. You can do CPU, you can do the CPU cooler, you can do, if it's not an AIO, you can do RAM, you can do the M.2 all outside the case, and then once you get the case, all outside the case, once you get the motherboard in there, it is pretty straightforward from there. Once you get the I/O shield on the case, once you get the motherboard in there, it really is just a GPU, especially if you did everything else outside the case. And the reason I like to do it like that instead of putting the motherboard in the case is because of the room that you have. As you can see, when you're building it in the case, it's kind of like building it in a 3D box, if that makes sense. So right here, I'm trying to do some cable managing. A tip that I learned from an actual YouTube video is, and you're probably not going to see it here because my phone literally died in the middle of this 2-hour build. It took me 2 hours to build it, yes. My phone died in the middle of it, but what I did was I plugged in all the power supply cables first and then routed them. And that was a lot much easier. A lot easier. English is literally like my fifth language. It's not, but I'm just terrible with English. But it was a lot easier to actually plug in the power supply cables there, just all the power supply cables from the motherboard first, and then route it through the case because it was easier to get to it and plug it in. Here, I'm looking online. It's always good to have your phone. I couldn't have my phone because my phone was recording, but I had my laptop right next to me. I was just on Reddit, just making sure I'm doing this correctly, trying to figure out some workarounds and everything. So, as you can see here, I'm just plugging in cables, making sure everything is lined up using the case. My phone, the thing dies right around here. Maybe, yep, and there it is. There is the first boot up of the actual PC, everything all aligned and put together. Um, as you can see, it looks amazing. And I'll post the specs here. I'll go over the specs in a few moments. So this is the price breakdown of the PC that I actually built. As you can see here, the potential cost that I have here is what I really wanted to spend. I wanted to keep this build under 500 because my goal was to sell this PC for around 750 to try to make a $250 profit. Um, Probably not realistic here, but this is my first build that I plan on flipping. Couple used parts that I bought that I made sure were working great. Where's the CPU? Was the RAM, and then the GPU. Everything else was brand new. Brand new sealed motherboard, power supply, SSD, and then as well as the cooler itself and the case. But those three components, sorry, were used. I just found great deals on them. I don't think used parts are bad. I treat used parts just like anything else. So like I bought and use anything in my life. You know what I mean? If I can get a good deal on buying something secondhand, I have no problem on it as long as has a great if it looks like it's in great condition. I bought in car parts used that worked fine. I bought in you know the 3080 Ti that I'm running on the PC that I'm recording on right now. I bought it about 3 years ago, and it's been working fine. Before that, I had a 2080 Ti that got messed up in moving, but I bought that one used and it worked fine. So I have no problem buying used parts. Now, there's a couple things that I won't buy used. I think the number one thing I won't buy used is a power supply, storage. Let's see here, cooler, just because coolers are so inexpensive, even if you go AIO, and a case. Reason being, I'm so against buying case used, so against it, is because when I first built the PC that I'm on right now, I went through a lot of iterations with the PC. The first, I got a deal on a 2080 Ti back in 2019, 2020 when I built it. That I was able to pick up the power supply, GPU, and a case for, I forgot how much I pay. I mean, I do have it, but I don't even want to talk about those prices because I'm kind of disgusted. Those prices are not the same anymore. But when I got this case, I thought I was getting a deal. But when I went to actually build my PC, there were so many screws that are missing, so many, it just didn't feel right when I was building it. So there's just a couple things that I will never buy used when actually building a PC, and that would be the power supply, SSD, cooler, the case, and the motherboard. Um, I think those are probably the most biggest components that I would try to keep new as best as I can. Everything else, I don't mind if it's used. RAM has a lifetime, like a life expectancy that's like, I mean, it could really go on forever. I mean, there's RAM kits that are from like years ago that are still being sold on, the eBay marketplace that you're able to pick up and it still works fine. You know what I mean? So that SSDs, although SSDs are a lot more reliable than HDs, they still kind of have a life to it. GPUs, I don't mind buying it used. I like to make sure it runs good. I like to make sure that I'm getting it from somebody of reliable seller. And I understand that there's people out there that come off as reliable. I do my due diligence. Like I'm asking for pictures. I'm asking for it running. I'm asking for a test. I'm asking for pictures when we're about to meet up. Like I don't care. Like if I'm buying something from you, I will be that annoying marketplace eBay buyer. I don't care. I don't give a damn. Same thing with the CPU. Wanted to make sure it was good. I bought it used off eBay. It came in the box and everything. It looked like it looked in great condition. So I don't mind buying that stuff used. But all in all, I was into this build about, let's just call it $620 that I was into this build. I was able to build a modern AM4 platform PC that runs games over 100 frames at 1440p, and that's what I really wanted to achieve. I didn't want to do 1080. I think 1080 is obsolete nowadays. Yes, in competitive titles, people run 1080 because they get more frames, especially with the monitors. But let's face it, man, 1080 versus 1440p, 1440p looks 10 times better than 1080, and it's not even comparable. So for me personally, I'm not a competitive game. I'm competitive, but I'm not competitive to the extent where I'm gonna go ahead and go 1080p to risk like the actual quality for more frames. I just don't care like that much. As long as I'm getting over 100 frames, maybe 140 frames at 1440p, and if I have to tone down some settings, then that's fine. I don't care. So I just wanted to make sure I build a PC that's 1440p, can handle modern titles, and it's in a good budget where you're able to get a quality PC. I was able to build this PC all in for about 620, and I'm extremely happy with everything turned out. It runs games at a, I was able to play Fortnite, all the competitive titles, Fortnite, Battlefield, um, Arc Raiders, new game that just came out, which is a phenomenal game. Apex Legends, if I didn't name that already, and it ran over 100 frames and high settings, and I didn't have any issues. My plan is to try to sell it for about 750 roughly on the marketplace to try to just make a profit on it if I can. But this was my target, right? This was my target, but this is what the actual cost to. As you can see, I spent a little bit more than what I wanted to. I think I was being unrealistic here. Now looking back at it, it was very hard to stay in this budget. If I'm not, I probably could have went with something a little bit better here, but it's just like the GPUs that would get me into this range were just very, very old, and I just didn't feel comfortable with this. Yes, this is from, if I'm not mistaken, let's see when this released. The 6800 XT release. 2020. So it came out about 5 years ago, and it runs great. It still runs great. It still runs phenomenal. I played Red Dead Redemption. I beat Red Dead Redemption on this actual GPU because I think one of the first things I got with the GPU. So I didn't have anything else. I wanted to make benchmark it, stress test it, make sure it ran good. Ran Red Dead Redemption great, over 100 frames at the highest settings and the optimized settings, and it ran that game amazing. I didn't have no issues with it. So this is 16 gigs of VRAM, which, as you know now, most titles are using a lot of VRAM. So I just wanted to make sure when I built this PC for the next, with the client in mind, that I want to make sure that they don't run into any issues with modern titles in the next couple of years. Now that can change. I do think that you can future-proof a system to a certain extent. Like, people online will always tell you that you can't, but you can. You can. Like, let's be for real. You can. Like, if games are recommending 8 gigs of RAM and you get a GPU that 8 gigs of VRAM and you get a GPU that's 16 gigs, you're pretty good for the next couple of years. So I just wanted to make sure that I build an all-around reliable system that can not only run old games that people still play to this day, so those are your Fortnite, Apex, Warzone, but I also wanted to make sure it can run future games and has enough capability for running future games. This 5600 and the 6800 XT paired up beautifully. When I say beautifully, optimizations was great, utilizations was great, frames was amazing. I was able to run games on high settings and be able to get over 100 frames on most modern titles. Battlefield 6, I get more frames on this setup than my 3900X with 3080 Ti. So all in all, was in this build for about 618. So let's just call it 620, and I was able to build a very, very amazing PC that hopefully the consumer who picks up this PC is able to enjoy as much as I did building it. Thank you guys for watching this video. I do think that with everything in 2025, you are still able to build the PC for under $700, and you don't have to go with a pre-built that cheaps out on parts. You're still able to, as long as you're able to buy a few used parts. If you are okay with buying a few used parts, there's no reason that you can't build the PC for under $700 that will run great. If I'm able to do it, you can. You know what I mean? So thank you guys for watching. I do appreciate it. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Any more questions, I will be uploading more videos. This is probably like the worst video I had so far, but I will get better at this. This is just something I'm doing now. It's been a hobby of mine that I've been wanting to do for like the last 10 years, to be honest with you. So thank you guys for watching, and I hope you guys have a great day.